wonder how many dead games have like really good menu designs that didn't survive past the game. Define menu designs. So like the feature you're talking about involving using menus while waiting for matches, which one I type is slightly more common, but quality of life stuff like that. Yeah. Sometimes there's just cool mode. Let me see. Cancel out a rank mode. So I forget if I've actually shown it off before, but this like online lobby mode is a pretty good example of that, where this is actually a really cool mode. And I remember it being really cool when it was active. But it's not anymore, because people are just going to use like the, normal, easier ways to find a match. That or I'm about to have my mind blown, because I've never seen anybody in these, ever since the PC version came out at least. But it's a cool little, like, arcade thing, where you, like, queue up on an actual, cabinet, I guess, is what you would call this thing. Battle kiosk, that's what they actually call it. And it's just neat. Yeah. I think I just heard it turned down too much, but you can actually normally hear like a faint, distant, like arcade chatter in the background, which is way more unsettling when absolutely nobody is in here. But just a cool feature that just like doesn't get used. Dead mall vibes, except on the speakers there were sounds of living malls. Oh, Pac-Man's such a weird franchise. And I have like kind of a equally weird history with it, just because there's like so many Pac-Man games that could be your first Pac-Man game. But the first one I personally played was Pac-Man 2, the one that I streamed before, where it's like a weird, basically point-and-click adventure type game. So I kind of like, I got the charm of Pac-Man as a character pretty like dense as like my first introduction to the character. And then I guess I technically played the arcade game in that, because there's like arcades in the game where you could play the original arcade game, which is cute. And then sometime after that, I also had like a Pac-Man collection for the Game Boy Advance, which I think I oh yeah, when I played Pac-Man Arrangement, that's like what I originally played that on. And eventually I lost it, which was kind of sad. I used to go on field trips with like an after-school program I had to like the beach all the time. And there was one day where I brought that there and I guess just lost it at the beach. And my brain just still does a thing every time I go to that same beach where I'm like... for the year or two after, or not even 2 years afterward, for the first like month or two afterwards, it was pretty reasonable for my brain to be like, if I go to this beach, maybe if I look around enough, it'll still be here somewhere. But it's like my brain still wants to do that years afterwards. And by years, I mean decades at this point, probably. And then after that, I honestly don't think I thought of the franchise that much until Pac-Man got announced for Smash. And the way I've always described it is that I never really thought that I had that much of a soft spot for Pac-Man as a character. And as soon as I saw the reveal trailer, it's like I was just like, aw, Pac-Man. I love Pac-Man. I want to play Pac-Man. And then suddenly Pac-Man was a much bigger part of my life because I played Smash competitively for a very long time. So now it's been like more of a retroactive thing for me to like both think of the history that I've had with the character, and also like I've cared enough to do stuff like go back to the Pac-Man World games because I just appreciate the character that much more now. Okay, I talked about it a little bit before, but after the Pac-Man 2 stream that I did, I've spent like a little bit of time like actually trying to for real learn Pac-Man. So I'm motivated to go to those just to see if that pays off a little bit. Like, just like the actual arcade game, like trying to learn the ins and outs of it, which I like knew a little bit of going into it, but it's been fun to actually try to learn more about it. Reminds me of those like cheapo Bandware platformer games I've played, like the Garfield one, but actually well made. It kind of has that energy to it, and I think that it kind of makes sense that it does, just in the sense that like, I don't know, Pac-Man doesn't exactly have like an extremely strong identity when it comes to worlds. It's kind of just like, is there ghosts? Is there dots? Is there Pac-Man? And then every single take on Pac-Man is like, well, as long as you got those things, do whatever the hell you want. So it ends up being so many weird interpretations of the character and what world the character lives in, and who's an antagonist for Pac-Man. Like, the world is forced into maze format. That's all we know. Yeah, it's like, don't worry, that like we'll make sure things are laid out for you to do the Pac-Man things eventually. But yeah, just off the top of my head, there's like these games that just give off this like generic 3D platformer energy. There's obviously Pac-Man 2, that's this weirdly fleshed out like map of what feels like a genuine countryside with a ghost witch, I guess, that basically never comes back. There's the super old cartoon, which I honestly don't know a ton about, but I know that one gets its own kind of weird. There's the extremely cursed new cartoon, which I honestly don't even want to learn anything about, because every time I've spent 2 seconds trying to watch the show, I've cringed out of my mind. So I hope that I never do. All I know is that apparently there's a war that happens in it at some point. Like, there's like this weird amount of lore with like a pack war. I don't know. It seems like the worst show ever, and anytime I've even tried to humor it for the Pac-Man bit, like, oh, Derek likes Pac-Man, let's watch the Pac-Man show. I actually can't do it. What was the last time I tried is because we were like on, whoa, shit, that's fast. I think it was just like Netflix or whatever was giving like, here's a list of Halloween episodes or Christmas episodes or something. And we saw the Pac-Man show on the list, and I don't think we got more than like 2 minutes into it. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, a fun fact about that show that I always remember is that, I guess around the time that show was airing is when like Smash 4 was in development. And obviously they were adding him as a character to the game. And Sakurai was literally like, oh yeah, we would love to have Pac-Man in the game, but we are not using that new design. Because I think there was definitely a period of time where they like tried to make it canon. Like, basically everything was going to be marketed with that new design. And Sakurai was just not having that. One thing I also have, like, a weird soft spot for with Pac-Man, which I forget if I've talked about before, was, like, for some reason, Pac-Man, like, whenever there's, like, a reason to make a remix of it, whether it's a fan remix or just, like, a Pac-Man theme for a Pac-Man game itself, or like a different Namco game where they want to like have like a Pac-Man themed area or something. Despite the fact that it's usually remixing like at most 3 or 4 different really tiny songs and have like a few sound effects to work with, for some reason they all end up sounding really, really good. Something about the Pac-Man theme itself and how like punchy the original Pac-Man sound effects are end up just being really good for making music. And people just make really, really good music with it. Yeah, my hands are so huge that the Switch is painful to use after a short time, unless I use the Pro Controller. Yeah, it helps that the Pro Controller, at least for me, is probably just the most comfortable controller that's out there. Like, I just use it for everything, hence why I have it as like the controller display. It's because I'm like actually using it. But yeah, no, the Switch itself is pretty rough. Yeah, I think actually technically the past 2 controllers I used were probably entirely based on the fact that I used them for Smash, where before this, like before the Wii U Pro Controller came out, and I was using that for playing Smash, and thankfully it just ended up being a pretty universal controller that could connect to everything. I had a Wii U Pro Controller adapter because I used the Wii U Pro Controller to play Smash because I hated using the GameCube controller. I think the GameCube controller is neat as heck for some games, but I do not know how people use it for Smash. It hurts my hands after like 4 seconds. And pretty much always has. Even before I had hand problems, I was like, this doesn't even feel good for me to use. But I guess I don't know how much of that is just that my hands are as big as they are. It's honestly wild in retrospect that I used the Wii U Pro Controller for so much. I liked it. But it's not like it was the best controller in the world. I think the one thing it did sell me on that I do not like about most of the other main controllers, and one thing that I'm really glad the Switch Pro Controller kept, is I do not like analog triggers. I really, really like that the triggers on both the Switch and the Wii U Pro Controller are basically just buttons. And I'm sure there's like situations where the analog triggers are nice or important or whatever, but for me, I just think they're much more comfortable and faster to use on a physical level than analog triggers are. And again, just another reason I'm surprised the GameCube controller is so popular for Smash. Because I feel like it just actually makes it harder to block with how much, like, you have to put into your finger to block stuff. Even if it's a fraction of a second, that still is kind of like... that matters. I actually wanted to get a lot more into doing stuff with the Game Boy Advance. Like, because I found my old childhood SP, which was a very surreal experience. I went over a friend's house, like... what I always kind of just describe as my first friend, because we met in preschool, I think, and we still talk to each other to this day. And one time when I was over his house in the past handful of years, we were just going through some of his old stuff and getting nostalgic. And I immediately noticed my Game Boy Advance SP in his stuff, because I thought I was super smart and had a super cool idea of scraping off all of the paint on my SP because I wanted to repaint it blue one day. Meanwhile, again, I did this when I was like a child, like whenever the SP actually came out. So immediately it was recognizable to me that I was like, oh hey, that's the one, that's the SP that's mine, and I can tell because I absolutely destroyed it. Because I thought I was going to paint it one day and then never did. And I considered actually going through the trouble of painting it now that I was an adult, but what I ended up just doing was, I did recase it. So now it does have the, a blue case on it. The reason that I ended up, like, I did buy a good handful of games for, like, my Game Boy Advance after that happened. And I was heavily considered buying a flash cart for it, so I could, you know, just kind of put whatever on it. And not have to worry about the fact that the used game market is a train wreck right now. And then I realized that I've gone through double carpal tunnel, and most games the SP is miserable for, with hands as big and ruined as mine. So the Game Boy Advance is great for things like RPGs and stuff. Like the one game that I did play through from start to finish on it after I got the thing set up was Mother 3. I got a reproduction card of Mother 3, and that was really, really cool to play on original hardware. But then I thought of playing almost anything else on it, and I was like, maybe I won't take this too seriously. Like, I was like, oh yeah, there's the Sonic Advance games, that sounds miserable. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of Mega Man, that sounds very miserable. That's hardly even appealing to play on the Switch. Oh no, fuck. Let alone the, Game Boy Advance. Thinking of it, it's probably the console I own the least amount of games for. I regret how much I've, like, sold games over the years. Because, I mean, again, obviously I didn't really have anything for the Wii, because I didn't have the Wii. But there are a lot of consoles that, I had, like, pretty full libraries for, and ended up selling a lot of them. Or when I was really little, just kind of destroying them, because I thought that that was the smart thing to do when I got a new console. Well, a lot of the time it was just being really eager to get stuff for whatever the new hotness was. Even if it was the GameStop scam where I only got like dollars, if that, for most of the games that I ended up selling away. I do, at the very least, still have my 3DS collection, which admittedly has felt slightly redundant ever since modding your 3DS became easy. And I could literally back up all my save files and entire games onto my 3DS. But at the same time, I just have that brainworm of like, if I just sell these away, I'm gonna feel the same way I did about all my other consoles. Forgot some 3DS games. Those were lost too. Were they like, because you sold them off, or like moves or whatever? I've lost a bunch of stuff to moves. Which sucks, because I'm usually on top of a lot of my stuff. And I still have like most of my stuff from moves, but a lot of my games in particular, I think, was like the one box that I happened to end up losing that had a lot of stuff like that. both games and like old manga and books and stuff that I had. I don't know how that one of all of my moving stuff managed to be the one I lost, but here's what it is. I mostly feel bad about that because I was basically holding on to the collection that both me and my friend Josh were building up. And there was just a really complicated period where I had to keep like moving my stuff around between like a bunch of different houses. So when they finally went missing, I'm pretty sure it was just because of how chaotic my life was at the time. And he contributed like a decent amount to that. So like, I guess it's hard for me to remember if that's exactly how things panned out with that stuff, but if it is, I like, you know, it sucks a lot. Sucks to lose them, and also sucks that it like wasn't just me losing my stuff. I think it was largely us building them around the time when they were cheap, though. Like, when GameStop was selling stuff like Xbox and PS2 games and stuff for basically nothing because the new consoles were out. I gotta go on a journey to the local Asian market. We have like 2, and they always have the best Kit Kats. Oh yeah, Kit Kats are another one. They always have great stuff. I love going to the Asian grocery stores. I just like a lot of their flavors and stuff better. Even if it's literally just to go snack shopping. Or drink shopping, that's the other thing. That's how I got really addicted to melon flavored stuff. Because I originally like found the flavor through, was it like Trident has like a triple melon gum or something, and I got unreasonably obsessed with it. And not that those taste exactly like melon flavored stuff generally does, but it's really close in flavor. And when I found out that like melon flavor was a thing, I went like absolutely nuts for it. And then follow that up with figuring out that H Mart was a thing. Like one of the local grocery excuse me, local grocery stores we have like that. And actually, I wonder if I can find the picture. I think I have the picture saved on my computer. One of the first times that I took like a huge like H Mart excursion, I literally just bought like every melon thing I could, and then I placed them all like on like a countertop to take a picture of them all together. I want to see if I can find it. There it is. Yeah. Look at all that. Honestly, it wasn't even as much as I thought. God, I miss these sodas, though. They don't sell them anymore, the ones that are on the left there. The, like, metal cans. And since then, I've actually tried way more. And also, you know what? Maybe I'll even get some of it now. I have one of those, like, not aloe drinks, but they have, like, the chunks of something in them to drink with it. I bought, like, a melon one of those yesterday that I like a lot. Shout out to Apple. Oh yeah, Apple stuff is great. We actually bought some of that the other day too. Yeah, chunks of something. I forget. It's like some kind of like coconut or something. Nata de coco, I think it's called. I like actually forget, and hopefully I didn't just butcher something. They actually finally came out with a melon Kit Kat pretty recently. Those are really good. I think I still have a couple of those lying around. Yeah, honestly, I thought that I hated soda for the longest time. Because I just really, I'm not a big fan of like most of the flavors that you can find in America. Just, you know, like the basic like colas and, you know, like orange soda, grape soda. I really don't like root beer. I am pretty anti-root beer. That might be like bottom 3 flavors of anything. And then I found out that they made sodas of like things that I would actually like. And then, yeah, then once I had melon soda especially, it kind of blew my mind. Although that wasn't the first thing I found like that. The first was like a local brand that made like strawberry and blue raspberry, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could get these as soda. Aha. Okay, I didn't study the last one yet. Yeah! Oh, melon drink to that. What do the letters in the bottom right do? Okay, so this... I was going into this a little bit earlier, but something that, like... Unless they fixed or changed or I'm just forgetting something, pretty much every single thing you can collect in this game just makes your score better. And I don't think that matters other than just you have a score on the levels. So I'm like playing through this and questioning how much I should care to like do anything but just get to the end of the stage. Which isn't a great thing for me to question in a 3D platformer. Or any platformer. Even Kirby gets that right. Where they're like not hard games, but they'll have like they'll have at least like a few collectibles in each level, and if you get like all of them, you get extra stuff at the end of the game. If you collect you get it life, yeah. It is the only thing that feel like fun extra content, but even these are just for like score. And I guess mixing things up a little bit. Honestly, the Kong letters are another perfect example of how that's something that like got better as time went on. Like where like in the original games it was literally just for extra lives. And then in the Returns game they made them like another like, you know, towards 100% completion, you get something for getting all 4 in a stage thing. Yeah, I honestly really appreciate when games are like really good about their like the purpose of their collectibles. I think when collectibles are at their best in games, they're like, it takes it from a game where it's like kind of sort of easy to just go through the levels to something where it can be really cool to like make sure you're combing over everything. And like I think that's what I really like about games like Banjo-Kazooie. I mentioned Kirby earlier. Kirby does it really well. The Donkey Kong games are also, or the Donkey Kong Country Returns games are another good example where it's like running through the stages isn't anything too crazy. Not that it's like easy, but it's not like, you know, you could just blitz through it a lot easier than if you were making sure to comb over everything. So I kind of like it as that, like, it feels like you're actually getting every little bit out of the level design. Which is why the whole score thing in this game feels a little weird, because I'm like, I want to get every little bit out of the level design, but like, why am I doing it? Ah! I think one thing Crash 4 will probably, like, forever spoil me with is, they have, like, a yellow circle under you for everywhere you go in that game. So it is, like, impossible to have depth perception issues, basically. Because it'll always be like, yes, you are going to land in the yellow circle. And it's like, it's a little ugly, but it visibly just makes the game so much easier to read. It hasn't been like actually that much of an issue playing this again, but I do notice how much that mattered. I don't think I ever quite appreciated that design decision that much until I emulated, coincidentally also a Crash game at one point, where the shadows were broken. And it was so impossible to tell where you were jumping that I was like, wow. I didn't realize just how much that was like a design decision that mattered for that kind of like, for even being able to tell where you are. Because you notice in most games, like the shadow will just at least be below you like that, but even sometimes that's not like enough. Very nice. Yeah, let me actually see if I can like look up a thing of it real quick just to show you like exactly what it looks like in game. Anytime he jumps, you see like a yellow circle show up, and it even shows up over holes, which I think was really, really smart. Because then there's no like worrying how much distance there even is, like in whatever you're jumping over. It's just kind of like flat against the ground, like, oh, okay, that's how much distance I have to clear. Oh my god. I think the shadows are actually like a little bit off and not as like straight downward as I thought. Yeah, they've got to be. Because what a lot of games will at least do is always, like, even if they don't have something as fancy as what Crash 4 has, is they'll have the shadow be directly underneath you. Which, obviously, even though that doesn't make sense, it at least makes it easier to kind of tell where you're landing. But this one, like, moves up a little bit, so it can't always be trusted in that same way. And I think that's been, like, half of me falling off, like, when it's been pretty straightforward platforming like that. Ooh, there's some fun levels in the second half. I remember, at the very least, there's a carnival area that I'm looking forward to, because I really love carnival levels in games. I feel like half the time I ever go to, like, any kind of carnival in real life, I'm more there for the vibes than I am, like, actually the stuff there. Like, usually when they roll around, I'll at least want to go once just to, like, get some food and just soak in like the energy of what's happening more than I am to like actually ride any rides or anything. Funnel cakes though. I don't know if I've actually had like a funnel cake itself before. Usually I like, or maybe it's just that they're not as common around here maybe? I don't even think I've seen too many stands for them specifically. Usually I just see like fried dough. And then what happens every single time is that I look at the price and now they're like, you know, some places will be selling them for as much as like $6, $7, $8. And I'm like, it's literally a piece of dough. I could do that at home. I should do that at home. That actually sounds like a really fun thing to do. And then I immediately forget to ever think about that. And that's maybe what's going to happen again today. Although maybe it won't. Who knows? Maybe we'll follow through with it. I also don't know what it is too, but a lot of the times whenever there's like a carnival around here, they always have really good French fries. Or at least when they do have good French fries, they're like the best fries I've ever had in my life. So I always make a point to try and get them even if they are expensive. I guess something I've never considered before, maybe it's because like the oil is so fresh, because I assume they're not toting around old oil when they set up stands like that, although maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, these are like some of the only Mega Man games that have a plot that's worth taking super seriously. I feel like the Mega Man series, the way that I look at it, has always kind of been like more of a timeline story series, if that makes any sense, where it's almost more interesting as if you're like reading it in the history books of like, and then this is how all of these events went down, and this is how all of these events went down, and it like paints a cool world. But a lot of the individual like stories in the games aren't anything special. But these go like a bit harder into actually characterizing a bunch of stuff and having some like pretty realistic stakes. But yeah, the Resident Evil series is also kind of like that for me, where it's like, it's not that there's not interesting stuff happening in the stories, but they're usually not like worth reading into a ton for anything deep. It's mostly just like you're following people through the like these events that are happening in history. Doesn't mean they can't be fun, but one thing that's actually cool about these games and the ZX games, although it's cooler in this game, is that you can walk around the home base and just talk to people. Like this character is something you'd never see if you don't take time to just like walk around the base. Yeah, the entirety of this base can be 100% ignored. I could just kind of keep going back to CL there and just mission. I'm pretty sure they have like changing dialogue through the stages. Again, I'm pretty sure like you get dialogue reflecting how good you do on missions and things like that too. But yeah, I feel like something that, it's not just a Pokemon problem, but I kind of like think of Pokemon a lot of the times when I think about my experience with it. I've definitely largely spent my time in games ignoring like talking to NPCs for dialogue reasons. And most of that is because like my biggest experience with that growing up was Pokemon, and Pokemon NPCs are super boring. Like once in a blue moon there's one that'll have something cool to say, but 99 times out of 100 they're like basically just little tutorials in like a super not subtle way most of the time. Occasionally they work in like a little bit of character building into like them giving the tutorial, like maybe they have a hobby and like they're like contextualizing a tutorial and the whatever their hobby is, but like a lot of the times they're literally just like press start to get to the start menu. Pretty neat, huh? And it's like, oh, okay, thanks. So I was just like never incentivized to, oh yeah, I was never incentivized to really listen to what's it called, growing, or like to like bother digging into NPCs growing up, because I was never really like rewarded for it. But it turns out a lot of games that put time into their writing, it is totally worth it, and it's kind of cool. Honestly, in general, I think a lot of the Mega Man games I haven't touched in like a hot second. Because it's an interesting series in general, because the games are generally pretty short, as evidenced by me already almost being done with the first out of 4 games in this series. A lot of them can be beaten, like if you like generally know your way around them, can be beaten within like an hour or 2. So they feel more like little episodes more than they do like their own game. Like especially like some of the earlier Mega Man games practically feel like map packs more than they do their own games. It's like occasionally you get new fun toys as the games go on, but like they all just like a lot of them will even have like this, or like the classic series at least, they all like pretty much look the same too until you get to some of like the PlayStation ones. And the X games do look pretty different as they go on, but your general toolkit's the same through all of them. And like you'll notice the Zero series, like other than some flourishes, they all kind of look the same as you play through them, which I like though. And again, especially with the Zero series being a lot more story focused than most of the past games, or at least doing the best job at it. It makes it feel a lot more like 4 episodes of a TV show almost, or like 3 movies in a series or something, where it's like you can kind of just experience them all back to back because they're only so long that they shouldn't take you a crazy long time to get through, even on the first try. It could pretty much be something where like even if all of them take you like upwards of like 5 to 6 hours for 4 games that, or yeah, we'll even say 5 to 10 hours, even if it took you as much as 10 hours to beat each game as you're like kind of learning your way around the Mega Man games in general. It's still only like, you know, 40-ish hours a game, which is a lot, but that's as long as some full games are. So it's hard not to think of it as just one long game in that respect. I want to like the ZX games more, but I've got some issues with them. Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's just one of those situations where I have enough nostalgia and experience with... Oh, that was stupid of me. I have enough nostalgia and experience with the games that, like, the parts of the games that should bother me a lot more from just, like, a bad game design perspective just kind of don't. Because I've just already, like, passed them. Like, the map system and stuff, like, probably would have driven me nuts if I played that right after playing the Zero games, but, like, I don't know. I already tackled that demon, and now I can just kind of play through the games and have fun with them. Honestly, my only big problem with the first is how confusing and helpful the game map. Oh yeah, no, the game map is terrible. I won't pretend like I'm still not looking at, like, some kind of external map when doing it. I just kind of know what to expect with that, at least. I've never been, like, too big into speedrunning myself. I think it's, like, fascinating. Or speedrunning myself, meaning, like, doing it myself. I think it's, like, fascinating as a thing. I don't watch them super often, but I always just love hearing about them and, like, hearing about, like, the techniques and stuff like that. But the one time that I ever did really try speedrunning on my own terms, I very casually style just tried speedrunning through the old Mega Man games. Just because I think it was, like, around the time I was, like, really getting into, like, getting through the classic Mega Man games. And there was a couple of them that I just really liked and was playing through a lot, and I was like, you know what, let me see if I can actually, like, zip through these. Didn't look anything up about proper strategies or glitches or anything like that. I was just kind of like, how fast can I do normal Mega Man movement through these levels and make it to the end? What was I thinking about that the other day? Oh, the Shadow the Hedgehog game. That's, like, really infamous for having a really awful, like, mission system and story structure and stuff. I'm like, we're in the future. Where's, like, the crazy Sonic fan who fixed Shadow the Hedgehog yet? That is something that's already happened with, what is it, Sonic 06? Like, there's, like, a fan that's recreating that entire game from the ground up and has already done most of it, at least as far as, like, the levels go. And it's like, you know, I won't say glitchless, because, you know, I don't know if there's still glitches in there, but, like, surprisingly devoid of, like, all of the glitches from the original, plus they rebalanced the game to be much better. And it's, like, and no, on top of just, like, the inherent things that come with being a modern PC game. Sonic 06 is a fan remake? Yeah, I think it's just called, like, Project 06 or something. And the entire project is, like, insane. I would definitely recommend looking into it if you're into that sort of thing. The short version is that most, like, opinions that I've seen of it, and that I could pretty much agree with, is that as far as just, like, the actual raw, like, Sonic experience, like, platforming side of it, it's turned into a lot of people's favorite Sonic game as far as just, like, getting through the stages and getting S ranks and stuff. If you like the Sonic levels of the 3D Sonic games, I'd recommend Spark the Electric Jester 3. It's basically... Oh, yeah, I've seen stuff about that game. That game looks really sick. I've been meaning to try out all of those games for a while, because I remember hearing about the other games, too, back in the day, of, like, you know, just being Sonic-adjacent fan games. Like, I really like Freedom Planet and stuff like that, and it was always kind of in the same conversation of, like, hey, other people are doing Sonic better right now. It's just not Sonic. Man, fan game communities are sick. Mega Man has a lot of good stuff. I know there's like a couple of Mega Man fan games in particular that are like just some of my favorite games in the series, and they're so faithful to the series that they might as well just be a canon part of it. And something I've always had a soft spot for as well is that Mega Man fan game music is like always good, like all the time. And there are so many people who have like fan game projects where like even if the project itself is pretty unknown or went nowhere, there'll be like a soundtrack for it on YouTube that has like 800 views a video. And it's just fantastic NES Mega Man style music. So even if there's not a good game out of it, there are like endless awesome 8-bit Mega Man style soundtracks. Mighty Gunvolt very much felt like it was supposed to be like a, I guess, spiritual successor to the Zero series. Like, where they very much felt like they were, like, hands-on design for the entire thing. In a way where I totally don't blame them for trying to take some of those design lessons into their own very similar game. But of course, that always has kind of a mixed track record of original devs trying to kind of keep the spirit going of their original games. Something Mighty Number 9. I actually never got around to trying Mighty Number 9, and I don't know if I care enough to outside of the meme. So I don't know how, like, actually worth playing it is. All I do know is that a lot of people hate it on ukulele, and I didn't end up minding that much. Like, maybe because I wasn't going for 100% or anything, but I ended up having a decent amount of fun with ukulele, so I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I would like Mighty Number 9, but the case doesn't seem quite as strong for it. Something I found out kind of recently, which I've heard, like, nobody talk about, and also it doesn't seem good, so that's probably why, is that, I guess at some point in the past, like, 3 or 4 years, the people who made Custom Robo made a completely new original game that was essentially just, like, a spiritual successor to Custom Robo. But it did not look very good, and all the reviews said it was not very good, so and it wasn't cheap, so I didn't end up getting around to actually trying it for myself. But that sucks, because Custom Robo is a cool game that deserves the love.